The moment the camera turned on during that congressional hearing, something felt different, like everyone in the room knew they were about to witness a collapse in real time. And it all started with one brutal question. What happens when the person responsible for protecting the country can't even defend their own decisions? Because within seconds, one representative delivered a blow so sharp it didn't just silence the room. It exposed a level of dysfunction so deep it left millions of people asking how this could even be happening inside the highest levels of national defense. And what unfolded next wasn't just political theater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Hegseth, Chairman Kane, thank you both for being here today. Mr. Secretary, your testimony over the last several days before Congress, I've heard you speak about all of your supposed accomplishments from your time at the Pentagon. I have to say, your training at Fox News has let you spin months of dangerous dysfunction and incompetence into catchy phrases like restoring the warrior ethos and increasing lethality. But the truth is, it's really been chaos at the Pentagon under your leadership. You've clearly shown you're unable to manage the Department of Defense, but what I'm most concerned about are three specific areas: your operational incompetence, your managerial incompetence, and your budgetary incompetence. So let's start with operational. According to news reports, in your first week on the job, you got confused in a National Security Council meeting and thought President Trump wanted you to stop all aid to Ukraine. In a well-functioning administration, you would have asked for clarification before making that seismic policy shift, but instead you ordered vital military aid heading to the front lines turned around, costing the U.S. millions of dollars, and depriving Ukrainian soldiers of equipment they needed to fight Russia. So, Mr. Secretary, can you explain how exactly you misunderstood such a monumental presidential order?
One of many fake news headlines we've dealt with.
So, President Trump told you to halt military aid to Ukraine on January 30th?
As is often the case, highly ideological and very ill-informed reporters love to speculate about things they know nothing about in order to spear President Trump and myself.
So it sounds like actually the reporting is correct, because I will say, if it wasn't a mistake, why did aid restart only a few days later?
Again, we would take complete issue with what would some call reporting and others call a hatchet job.
So why did aid start just a couple days later?
I'm saying the reporting is inaccurate, ma'am.
I don't think that's correct. So let's move on to your managerial incompetence. I think we can see why you misunderstood the president, because you're obviously misunderstanding my questions. Less than a month into the job, you fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, C.Q. Brown, and the chief of naval operations, Lisa Franchetti, without cause. And to this day, you still have not provided an adequate explanation for removing them. As far as I can tell, you fired C.Q. Brown because he was black and Lisa Franchetti because she is a woman. So nearly 4 months later, we still don't have a new nominee for Chief of Naval Operations. News reports, and you can contest it, but I'd love to hear your answer, say that you haven't nominated someone because qualified admirals keep turning the position down. So tell me, Mr. Secretary, when will Congress receive your nomination for the next chairman of the next chief of naval operations?
Ma'am, with all due respect, I would suggest not believing every headline you read.
With all due respect, I'd like your nomination. When will we see it?
There has not a single admiral or any military official has turned down a position that's been
So when will we
provided.
see your nominee for the chief of naval operations?
In due time, for all the right reasons.
Again, I think we've seen the managerial incompetence. Okay, let's move on to budgetary incompetence. You missed the deadline to submit a draft defense budget to Congress, which makes it impossible for us to complete our work on the NDAA or appropriations, and makes it more likely you'll receive delays in funding you need for new acquisitions, programs, and other priorities. Additionally, you're blowing money on poorly conceived operations and vanity projects for President Trump. Retrofitting the Qatari jet to serve as Air Force One will cost about $400 million. The parade in D.C. this weekend will cost upwards of $40 million. Your bombing campaign in Yemen cost about $1 billion, and a week later they were having missile strikes in Israel. Your operations in L.A. will cost tens of millions of dollars, and you claim to be cutting costs at the Pentagon, but all I see are wasted dollars better spent addressing our most pressing threats like China. So, Mr. Secretary, what priorities have you cut funding for to pay for these projects?
Ma'am, I would just say your list left off securing the southern border.
So, Mr. Secretary, what priorities have you cut funding for to pay for these projects?
We make trade-offs every day, and I would imagine what we want to spend on is quite different than what the previous administration did.
Well, I think
Made
the American
those changes quickly, and they're reflected in this budget, and we're very proud of them.
I think the American people can see why I'm so concerned about this incompetence. Thank you, and I yield back.
It was a public unraveling packed with confusion, contradictions, denials, and accusations that sent shockwaves through the entire country. IT wasn't the kind of calm, scripted hearing you're used to seeing. This was something else, raw, heated, and packed with revelations that raised serious questions no one expected to hear out loud. And it all began with a simple accusation that turned into a full-blown confrontation. You've shown operational incompetence, managerial incompetence, and budgetary incompetence. Not one accusation, not 2.3, each more explosive than the last. From the moment those words hit the air, it was clear this wasn't going to be a polite back and forth. This was going to be a dismantling. And the person in the hot seat wasn't ready for what came next. Because the representative didn't just challenge policy. She challenged the very idea that the Pentagon was being run responsibly at all. And the tension only grew as she dug deeper into decisions that left both lawmakers and military officials stunned. She started by recounting something that, if true, is almost unthinkable. A major national security decision allegedly triggered by a complete misunderstanding. According to reports she cited, during one of the most critical moments in global conflict, the secretary misunderstood instructions during a high-level meeting and believed he was supposed to halt military aid to a country fighting for survival. Yes, you heard that right. Critical aid, halted because of a misunderstanding. But it gets worse. The moment the misunderstanding happened, ships carrying military support were reportedly ordered to turn around, costing millions and leaving frontline. Troops shorthanded at a time when every piece of equipment mattered. And when she asked the man responsible to explain how such a colossal mistake could have happened, he dodged, deflected, and blamed bad reporting. Over and over. Even when she pointed out that if the story was false, the timeline didn't make sense. Because the aid mysteriously resumed days later, matching the exact sequence described in the reports he claimed were inaccurate. That's when the frustration boiled over. The representative didn't buy a word of the denial, and the more he tried to brush it off, the more obvious it became that something didn't add up. The exchange wasn't just awkward, it was alarming. Because for the first time, viewers watching the hearing saw someone at the top of the national security chain unable, or unwilling, to give a straight answer about a decision with global consequences. And yet, that was only the beginning. She then pivoted to something even more shocking. The firing of two top military leaders, a service chief and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, only weeks into the new administration. No announcement, no explanation, no official reasoning. They were simply removed, and months later, key positions still weren't filled, no nominees, no answers, just silence. But the part that stunned the entire room was her suggestion, again, stated as an accusation, not a conclusion, that these firings looked less like strategic decisions and more like personal or political purges. She implied bias might have been at play, and although she didn't present evidence confirming that motive, she clearly believed something deeply concerning was happening behind the scenes. When she confronted him about rumors that multiple admirals had allegedly turned down the opportunity to take the vacant role, rumors circulating across military circles and online communities, the secretary pushed back immediately, calling it all inaccurate. But again, he offered no names, no timeline, and no clarity, just more deflection. And for many watching, the pattern was becoming unmistakable. But if the operational confusion and sudden firings weren't enough to raise red flags, the financial issues absolutely were. Because next, she revealed that the Pentagon had missed its legally required deadline to submit a draft defense budget to Congress. Something that almost never happens. Something that throws national defense planning into disarray. Without the budget, Congress can't write the funding bills that keep major programs alive. And without those bills, the military enters dangerous territory, delays, gaps, and uncertainty for projects that should never be put on pause. And the question hanging over everything was simple. How does the largest defense institution on the planet miss a deadline this important? Her answer: incompetence, plain and simple. But the moment she brought up spending, oh, that's when things truly exploded. She laid out a list of projects she described as wasteful, unnecessary, and shockingly expensive. A rumored $400 million retrofit of a foreign luxury jet to serve as a high-profile aircraft at a massive public spectacle costing tens of millions. New operations burning through money with almost no justification. Even an entire bombing campaign that cost nearly $1 billion, only for the targeted region to experience further instability within days. She pressed him hard. What priorities did you cut to make room for these projects? His answer: deflection. Again, that he mentioned unrelated priorities. He criticized the previous administration. He pivoted away from the actual question entirely. And the more he dodged, the more obvious the situation became. The representative wasn't just accusing him of mismanaging money. She was accusing him of hiding where that money went. And viewers could feel it: the tension, the disbelief, the sense that someone who should have all the answers didn't have any. By the time she delivered her final line, I think the American people can see why I'm so concerned about this incompetence. The damage was done. Every misstep, every contradiction, every refusal to answer had painted a picture far more troubling than anyone expected when the hearing started. But what makes this hearing so explosive isn't just what was said, it's what it suggests. Because behind every accusation is a bigger question. If this is how decisions are being made inside one of the most powerful institutions in the world, what else is happening that we haven't seen yet? Let's break deeper into how each part of this unraveling exposed something bigger and more dangerous than a single misunderstanding or a missed deadline. The moment aid was frozen, whether by mistake or confused direction, real soldiers lost real support. That's not a political talking point. That's a life-and-death consequence. And when someone at the top shrugs it off as fake reporting, without addressing the actual timeline that matches the reports, it's no wonder people are starting to question the truth. Then there's the internal chaos. When respected leaders are removed with zero explanation and months pass with no replacements, morale doesn't just drop, it deteriorates. Rumors spread faster than policy, and the absence of clarity creates a vacuum that only fuels speculation. Whether those firings were justified or not, the secrecy around them created a cloud of doubt that the hearing only made darker. And the budget? Missing it isn't just a paperwork error. IT slows down weapons systems, delays modernization, stalls cyber defense upgrades, and jeopardizes readiness. All because the Pentagon wasn't prepared. Add on the price tags of the high-profile projects she listed, and suddenly the problem isn't just incompetence, it's prioritization. Spending piles of taxpayer dollars on symbolic displays while global threats escalate makes the entire system look out of touch with reality. And that's what made the hearing so devastating. To IT exposed something bigger than a disagreement. That IT revealed a pattern: confusion, denial, evasion, misplaced priorities, and a growing sense that the leadership inside the Pentagon is drifting further from stability and deeper into chaos. And here's what's even more alarming. You could see it on his face every time she asked a direct question. He struggled, not with the details, but with the very idea of giving a clear answer. He knew the numbers, he understood the procedures, but transparency? That's where he froze, and viewers felt it. They didn't need to know every classified detail to sense that something wasn't lining up. Because when a leader is confident in their decisions, they defend them, they explain them, they stand by them. But that didn't happen here. Instead, the hearing showed someone trapped between denial and deflection, unable to provide explanations that could put the questions to rest. And that's what makes this moment so important. Because hearings like this aren't just about accountability. They're about trust. And trust, once lost, is hard to recover. By the end, the representative didn't need to raise her voice or even finish with a dramatic line. The hearing spoke for itself. The inconsistencies, the confusion, the missing answers. It was all right there in plain sight. And now, people across the country are asking the same thing. If this is what's happening in public, what's happening behind closed doors? Because if the Pentagon is being run with this level of chaos, whether through miscommunication, poor management, or misplaced priorities, that's not just a political problem. That's a national security risk, and that's why this hearing matters. Not because of the headlines, not because of the personalities involved, but because of what it reveals about the direction of the nation's defense. And if changes aren't made soon, if accountability doesn't come quickly, then we may be watching the early signs of a system on the verge of collapse. If you found this breakdown eye-opening and want to see the next major political showdown, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss the next explosive story. The next video is even more controversial, and trust me, you won't want to miss it.